My name is Sana Mohammed, and I'm currently in South Korea. Been called Sana or Sunners by some of my friends. My dad sometimes calls me Sana Beti or Sana Bibi or Guria.
Hi, my name is Noorin Ghulamgaus, and I'm from Toronto. I've been called Noor Gul, combining both the first and last name, and then also Nouri.
So my name is Naima and I'm talking from DRC, Congo. My loved ones, they called me Nano, but my husband sometimes calling me Mama.
Hi everyone, my name is Shan. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I've been called Shan, Shanu, don't ask why. My uncle called me Shanu Baba growing up, I don't know why. At work we go by last name, so Rajani, and then there's also Raj, because Rajani's hard to say.
Who here is the eldest child? Who is the youngest? Who here is the middle child? Growing up, who here had an imaginary friend? Growing up, who here felt different than those around them? Who here felt like they had to grow up fast? Who here is a little nervous right now? Who here, growing up, thought they would be famous one day? Who here, or who plays an instrument? Who here spends too much time on screens? Who here, growing up, was bullied? Who here struggles with self-doubt from time to time? Who here sometimes feels alone or isolated? Who here has struggled with body issues? Who here lives where they were born? Who here lives in a place that knows who Ismailis are? Who here has experienced prejudice or racism? Who here is a good dancer? Who thinks they would like to move somewhere else someday? And who here makes a great cup of chai? What is your favorite thing to have with chai?
My favorite thing to have with chai would, I'd probably get a lot of hatred for this, but people normally stick with Parle-G biscuits. I'm more of a Gluco Plus kind of guy. It's just, that's what I always grew up eating, so I prefer to have that over Parle-G.
So if I have to exclude the Parle-G, then it's the salted biscuits.
Either one of those or the crunchy toast. Like I wish I had some right now. I don't have those in Korea. So.
Honestly, anything sweet. So cookies, cake, just I have a sweet tooth, so anything, yeah.
What is exciting going on in your life right now?
I am moving in a couple of months. Actually, this month. It's June, so so that's a big shift for me. So I am leaving the current city that I'm living in, but yeah, I'm gonna be moving to Doha in August. But I have to move back home to LA first and then moving to Doha next. So
Oh God, I guess just growing up, I'm at an age in my life where it's like different responsibilities, family telling you certain things. It's like that age of like being more, responsible and reliable. And at times I think it's hard, but also exciting because it's like I'm shifting from who I've, used to be and who I thought I was to like this new version. And yeah, so I think that I find that exciting. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm preparing my son's graduation from school. So he's finishing school and going to university. He is in Toronto for now, and he will be going to McGill in Montreal. Yeah.
Right now in my life, I'd say work's been getting a little busier, but at the same time, just last week I found out I was promoted, and I was able to be home on leave visiting family. So, the fact that I found out while I was with my family was definitely an exciting moment for myself as well as for my family. I've been waiting for this for a few years, so it's definitely exciting.
Tell us what you do.
I am actually in the military, U.S. military, U.S. Navy to be specific. And currently I'm an instructor here in Chicago. So I've been working for the next rank, basically. It's a process of taking a test based on evaluations and other aspects of, personal growth. So education, school, physical test, everything combined, put together. It's been a few years for me to actually get this promotion. So, but still getting it under a certain period of time, I feel pretty good about it. So I'm glad.
I'm currently working as a high school counselor, but internationally. So I worked in California for about 9 years, but I've always wanted to work abroad. So I learned about the opportunities to work abroad in my second or third year of in my profession. So I kind of planned to get some experience and then take the plunge to work abroad. Korea just happened to happen, so it wasn't really in my list of places, to be honest. But the opportunity presented itself, and I decided to go for it. So
I'm a banker. So I work in a bank, 20 years experience in a bank. So basically, I'm an executive committee member. Yeah.
I do acting, as
Wow.
cliche as it may sound. Honestly, I've had a supportive, like family. My parents has always encouraged it, and as a matter of fact, I'm not the only one in the house that does acting. My little sister does it as well, so it's like, yeah.
How do you describe your cultural background when people ask?
So you can imagine the cocktail that I have. So I am originally Lebanese, born in Congo, married to an Indian, Ismaili. I was not born Ismaili, so you can imagine and lived in Toronto for a few years, got back in Kinshasa. So basically my house is a big mix of different cultures.
yeah, when I'm asked in Korea about where I'm from, who I am, it's also a very lengthy response typically. But usually I originally say I'm from the US or from California, but my parents are from India and Pakistan, and I, grew up in the States. So that's usually the blanket statement. I don't typically go into religion when I'm sharing that, at least in Korea, unless they specifically ask about it. So.
For me as well, I mean, I was born in Pakistan, but I grew up in the States. So I stick with the same thing, to be honest, that, yeah, I'm a Muslim. I don't go too much into detail with religion either. But yeah, the fact that I was born in Pakistan, that I grew up in the States, it's usually what I stick with to stay with the very basics. Um, Part of that reason being because of my work. I know you asked earlier in the 20 questions whether you've experienced, not necessarily bullying, but I wouldn't even call it racism, but every now and then you do get comments as such, or you do get statements, whether it's made towards you intentionally or unintentionally. That it has to do with the color of your skin. I try to keep it very limited. I try not to bring that up in my work environments. And the reason I keep bringing work up is because that's what I'm surrounded by 24/7. Unfortunately, I don't have the liberty of going to Jamaat Khan on a daily basis, or when I could, as I was growing up. So that's why I tend to stick to the basics when it comes to that.
Um, I think I always say that I'm from Afghanistan, and that I'm Muslim. Similar to everyone else, I don't really go into specifics of, what kind of a Muslim, whether Shia or Sunni. Those are more in depth that with certain people, but I just keep it simple. And then in terms of just like casting wise as well, I've been very fortunate enough that I don't specifically look a certain way. Like I could go for not anything, but it's like a broad of different ethnicities. And so I think in that way, it doesn't come as often, but sometimes like when they're very specific in terms of, the character they want to depict on film or TV, they do ask where I'm from so that they could change the name. So sometimes when it comes to that, then I do tell them, but usually it's yeah.
What sort of a challenge that you're going through right now?
I guess just hitting an age where your family's like telling you to marry, you know? Yeah, so I'm 26, just to put it out there. Everyone around you, like my cousins and friends are starting to get engaged, and then at any function that you are, they sort of come to you and ask you, well, when are you getting married or engaged? And it's like it's exciting, and that's what I was saying. It's exciting to kind of like flip a new chapter and think about being, like creating your own family. But at the same time, it's like challenging in the sense that you have to like grow up and get bigger responsibilities. And to me, that feels like I don't know if I'm ready for that. I still feel like I'm 18, so yeah.
Ooh, it's a lot of challenges at the moment just because of my transition, but I think I would probably talk about just the current year in terms of challenge or just being in the country of Korea. It's been pretty challenging to live here as a person of brown skin, I would say, because Korea is very homogenous, so you don't really see a lot of diversity here. And I live in a suburb, so it's even more very Korean. So I don't live in Seoul. I don't live in like proper what people think of Korea. So I think on a daily basis, I kind of have that challenge of like a language barrier, even for just food. Pork is in everything in this country, so it's pretty hard to avoid. And even when you tell them like a vegetarian or you try to say that, they still don't fully understand it. So I think just like language barriers, food, but I think a part of the challenge too is being away from family and home when things happen. Like I had a couple of relatives pass away in the time that I've been abroad, and that gets very challenging when you're far away from home. So just a mix of those while being abroad.
Oh, there is a lot going on, but what most challenging for now for me is to pick whether I want to continue in being a permanent on a job or to become only a consultant. It's just like kids are growing. I want to travel more. Maybe I want to move out. So these are things, too many questions going on, responsibilities in Jamaat Khana. So it's tough decisions to take.
For me, I'd say challenging. I think I would, as cliche as this sounds, but I would combine all three of those. I'm approximately in similar age as Noorin, and when I have an older sister, she's 2 years older than me, but when we're still growing up, I didn't have to worry about it. But now that I'm at that age, I have the same thing going on. At events and family functions, people will be asking, "Hey, when are you taking the next step in your life?" So that part is there. Living alone, I also understand where Sana's coming from. All right, not having family there or friends there at all times. Been overseas, so I understand that aspect as well. And then trying to balance myself out in between Jamaat Kana and work, or my spiritual life and my worldly life, of how I can do that. Like I said, right, I would love to be part of Jamaat Kana, be involved as much as I can, as much as I did when I was younger. Now I don't get to do it as much, but that's something that I'm trying to get back into.
What is the hardest part about being pluralistic?
It's about sometime like you don't know where the barrier are. It's like sometimes you have yourself and the people around you, and things that are normal for you can be like wrong for others. So these are sometimes you become hesitated in taking actions or saying something when you are sitting with people from different backgrounds. And sometimes also when people cannot identify you, they identify you as per your color of your skin or your name. And when actually maybe you like, I will talk even about Islamophobic area, like if you guys Muslim, oh, you guys like do this. Oh yeah, like we live normal, we are normal people. Like this is something sometimes it's difficult not to react. But people don't know much about Ismailis here, but it's not like Tanzania or Kenya and all where they are very powerful in terms of political and government and all in terms of society. But I will talk more about Indians are perceived. Okay, it is more because my husband is Indian, and it's more about like people who came in the year 90s and late 80s and 90s, they started coming here, and they are just grabbing the market. And they are perceived as people who are just taking over things, and sometimes it's challenging with local people. Yeah.
I think kind of similar to what Naima was saying, just having that clash with people who are may not be as pluralistic or they may not see things that way. Even within like my family unit, sometimes like I clash a lot, especially being born and raised in the States, but having family and extended family more so than anything. Kind of, when they came to the US, they want to keep those values and those thoughts and that mindset, but people back home, I have shifted actually their mindset and have progressed, and they have kind of stayed in that situation. So I've definitely had a lot of clashing within, I think, just older relatives in terms of pluralism, even though that's something that we obviously agree on, but I think practice is very different than actually agreeing or maybe understanding. But I don't think that agreement is always there, right? So.
I don't see an issue within my own identity, so to say. Like I've always been open, and I think we as Ismailis are taught to be very open to other things. Not saying that everyone is, right? We all have those older relatives here and there that are still stuck to their own ways, which is totally okay, right? Everyone grew up in a different time zone, different time frame. But I do feel because of whether it may be the color of our skin, whether it's the fact that we're Ismailis or Muslims in general, right? Or it could be the fact that, being from India, Pakistan, from that region, it also creates issues amongst other faiths, amongst other religions, and they see it differently. And that's where I would agree with Naima and Sana, right? That it's more so what other people, because they may not be as pluralistic as we are, and that's where it creates that divide. As much as I would, I'm not one to force anything, but I do like to at least try to get a point across or explain my side of the story. But when it's not understood, and that they're not going to understand it, that's where you kind of feel that divide.
It's always been something in the back of my head to sort of kind of fit in, especially here in like Canada or Toronto. It's always like, not only do I have to be a Muslim, and I also have to be from Afghanistan, which for me growing up was so hard because both of them are not sort of seen the way maybe I see it or my family see it or our people see it. And then just kind of going back in terms of just like how people react to the way I am an Afghan or I am a Muslim. Um, it's always has been like sort of negative in a sense, and I think I could tie that back with like racism or being bullied, whatever. It was never something that I could proudly speak about it growing up, especially when I was younger, because how the media portrays us as as Muslims or Afghans, it's looked down upon, and I was never able to sort of be proud of that or say that this is who I am. So how I coped with it was I tried to fit in being very generalized and neutral, or I would very like generalize my name. So my name and the way my family says it, it's Noorin. But then because I did not want to indicate anything, I would always very like Americanize it, or and I'd say Noorin, and I kind of grew up with this different identity, with this different persona that I wanted to be like the others around me. And then as I grew up, I realized that that's not who I want to be. And with as being an actor or being an artist and doing theater or TV and film, um, I I started to accept myself and be more free, and that's when I started seeing a shift in terms of more less tension and more freedom. And yeah, so it's always been hard, but it's something that I'm constantly working on as well at the same time.
I would say like even just like the name piece, like growing up, everyone would always say my name incorrectly. Like they'd say Sana or Sana or Suna, right? And I don't think I ever really corrected them because I don't know, maybe I just was like, I don't want to correct them because that's just like American people like saying my name, right? But then as I got older and like going into college, I don't know, there's just like a flip in my brain, and it was like, I need to start telling people how to say my name correctly. And I don't know if it was just like a confidence boost, or I felt like, I think also in the US, things were getting more acceptable in terms of like other people, other cultures, like Indian culture really blew up, right? At some point. So maybe I felt more comfortable. But I remember that was like such a big thing. And now in my like daily job, when like I have Korean students, but they have like American names or like, Americanized names that they go by. So I always ask them, what's your Korean name, right? Like I want to know your Korean name because I felt like if someone asked me like how do you say your name like right, I would have probably felt I could do that earlier on. But I'm going on a tangent, so
Now let's talk about dating and love life.
I figured it'd start with me just because of that. No, and that's so part of the reason what I mentioned earlier, right? Where it creates that divide, whether it be religion or, the color of our skin. But that's where I feel the difference is created, right? It becomes an issue where, and again, right, people may not be as pluralistic as we are, or as I am. And initially during the 20 questions you asked about, raise your hand if you felt different growing up, right? And that's where that comes into play for me, where it always felt different because I'm very old school. Like, yes, at heart I still feel like I'm 18, but at the same time I don't listen to any American music whatsoever. I listen to complete Bollywood songs, still Pakistani songs to this day. I'm very old school. I still have a Hotmail email, so I don't even go with Gmail anymore. So, and I get looks all the time for that, right? So for something as simple as that, when it comes to the dating aspect, whenever it's some in our culture, it's frowned upon to even date outside of the religion, right? But when you do, it's not the issue. I've been blessed with parents that are very open-minded. I've always had family support. My sister, my mom and dad, they've always been very supportive of anything that I've done. But it's usually the pushback that I get from others, whether that's Ismaili, whether that's outside, right? Of, oh, you're a Muslim. Oh, you're Pakistani. Now it creates issues, right? And it's usually not even it's usually not, and I don't mean to use the color, but it's usually not white people, right? It's usually other people of our color, right? Whether that be Hindus, whether that be Punjabis, anybody, right? It's usually other people that tend to create that divide. And I've noticed that regardless of the dating side, right? Even in school, I've noticed that I felt that way, at least, that they're the ones who have created that divide between us. I feel like it's always a sense of competition that, we never tend to work together. Where I've seen other races and other ethnicities, they always have each other's backs. And for some reason, I've never felt that people of our own skin, we never really have each other's back. That's just something that I've always felt growing up. So it kind of stuck when I actually got older, got into the workforce, got into, school and all, being surrounded by people, family, friends. That's what I felt more and more growing up.
And the dating.
And the dating, yes, it's definitely created the it. And I have these conversations with my parents all the time, right? That is it so bad sometimes that you're a Muslim? That why am I? I don't really question why am I a Muslim, but I do question at times why was I born in Pakistan, right? Why is my religion such a big issue, right? As the media makes it sound, and I'm pretty sure Noorin probably feels the same way when it comes to like you mentioned earlier about Afghanistan, right? Um, why he may or may not question it, right? But certain things like that still come to mind because it becomes an issue for your personal life, right? And that has nothing to do like your religious life. Of course, that's you as a person, right? But when it affects your other aspects of life, that's when it becomes a personal internal struggle for you of why is this being held against me that's not under my control, right? Um, I was brought up with it. I was brought up being a Smiley. I was born Smiley, right, into a Smiley family. However, why is that being held against me 28 years later, So that's where that divide comes in.
Um, there's a lot I can say, I think, but I mean, I think just similar. There's always been that pressure since I hit my mid-20s and now I'm almost in my mid-30s. So, and I'm still unmarried, so that's a big problem. And living abroad and moving abroad was not the easiest thing to talk to my family about as well, because that was their biggest thing is that I should settle down, right? So, but I mean, I think kind of the same thing. Like I've never been stuck to the idea of marrying someone Ismaili. Like I've always been very open to other cultures, other religions, because of that piece of like religion is a personal thing. And like even people who I've dated in the past, like that's kind of a conversation I always have because I know religion's always like a big conflict typically for people, especially within like he was mentioning within like Desi cultures or Middle Eastern cultures or religion's always like a big factor, I think, especially when it comes to like extended relatives and family. So um, I personally have been open. My parents have not been as supportive, unfortunately, but they still push the idea of staying within the community, which I understand. I totally understand why. And if it works, right? But I'm not tied to the fact of staying within the community because I feel very strongly a part of the community. So I wouldn't lose that piece of me, right? Versus I think my parents would see it as you're going to drift away from the community if you marry or you date outside. But I have a very strong like connection to my community, and I would never do that. So, yeah.
I think for me, it's a constant struggle or challenge because I come from, for me per se, my family or my parents were sort of a different generation and they lived a complete different lifestyle than the way they've raised me here in Canada. So their mindset is different than mine, but it's like we're in a place right now where I'm also transitioning and they're also transitioning. Like it's like a mix of everything. And so their sort of mindset is like you have to find someone Afghan. And if it doesn't work Afghan, let's go with Smiley. And if it doesn't work as Smiley, let's do Muslim. It's like they want to hold on to something, and I think that's beautiful. I understand them. I see where they're coming from, because in my sort of life, I've realized what it is to have a partner within your own sort of circle, the similarities, the things that you share, it's more common, and then also being with someone that has nothing to do with you and the struggle that you have trying to understand each other. So I see where my family comes in terms of like be with someone that you can talk to or relate to, and I find that beautiful. We have these ideas or these sort of baggages that our family or parents bring, but they're also on a journey of finding themselves and the mentality and the mindset that they've been grown into. They're also transitioning. So it's like, I think there is no set rules now. Now it's just about sort of just taking it in day by day and seeing what works and what doesn't. And there's no set rules. And for me, like that's why, like as a career too, like why I fell in love with being an artist, because there was no set rules. And that's how I believe. Like nothing should be set in stone. Like just take it day by day, be in the present moment, and see what you can take, and from there you just go. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, so I'm coming from a family that is very traditional, like in terms, it's a Shia family who was like who were lived in Africa for a long time, so came with their traditions and wanted to keep them, like Sana was saying. And when I went back home for my studies and all, I realized I'm not that kind of people. Like slowly I started discovering myself. So I was the black sheep of the family. I was always like, but I never thought I would ever date someone who's not Lebanese. Ever, like, it never crossed my mind. I was always in a Lebanese environment, even though I was in a French school, but still, I never dated anyone who is not Lebanese. So when I met my husband, it was a very surprising, and I decided to marry him. It was like a storm coming all the way. Myself, even I don't know how I decided that. Like, you know, sometimes just like you say, you are different. Yes, you feel different because you are able to take steps that maybe some other people wants to do, but they are not daring to do. But it was not easy to the society accepts you from both the side, from the Ismaili part, and because I just came to know that Ismailis and Ishnashiris are not the same thing only after I met my husband. So it was again like for me, he was Shia, I was Shia, so it's fine. And then when came to marriage, it's like no, it's not the same thing. It doesn't work the same way. And this is where conflict started. Like everybody different started, and like that means I have to convert to some like to Ismailism, and like I said, no, you're not obliged to. And this was a release for me that we could marry in the same way. I would say like the nikah is same, and also it made it easier. Like Noorin was saying, like if it's not if Afghani, it's Muslim. If it's not Ismaili, it should be Muslim. So at least I crossed one out of the three. So it was like it was a release for everyone. And I think it was a release for me because I didn't felt obliged to do anything. And my husband was very cool about it. And my husband direct family was very cool about it. But the society doesn't help sometimes, the broader family and the broader society. Like, and they always like that Gori who's coming, you know, like it's the outsider around. Like it's made me feel so like I started wearing Indian clothes, which is I love Indian clothes. I love Bollywood songs. I'm very traditional. I hear only Bollywood songs and Arabic songs and very old songs and all like dance and all these things. So I started and at a certain moment you start feeling that you're losing yourself to another identity that is not yours. And when then my kids came and my son came, and when I was not allowed to go to Jamaat Khana with him, and this is where the reality comes in, and I say, okay, it's about time to decide whether yes or no. And I read a lot, and there was a lot of good people who helped me a lot, who explained me a lot of things. And after I think Golden Jubilee, yes, okay, and I decided that to convert, and I attended Didar, and I was very blessed to be at that time, at that moment, and it was a transformation in my life. And I think Ismailism has taken me under his wings, I would say. And there is a lot of things I was able to achieve, okay, that made me more convinced that I'm taking the right decision. Parents agree or don't agree, it doesn't matter anymore. people agree or don't agree doesn't matter anymore, because you have peace within yourself, and that's the most important. Whether yes or no, I would like my kids to marry like someone, an outsider. I don't think it is a good idea to marry someone outside your religion, like the basic religion, whether I'm Muslim or Christian. If you remain within the Muslim world, okay, it makes it easier for the kids if you plan to have kids, because otherwise the kids get lost. And this is something people have to think about it before taking that step, because you need to be very, very clear about it. So it was a big challenge. You are young when you're 24. You don't think. I got married very young, younger than all of you. So I was very young when I got married. I think it was a crazy decision, but it was a good decision. And I was lucky my husband was Muslim, so it was easy. But it's not, I don't think I would advise my son to marry someone who's not Muslim, not because I'm against anyone, but because I think it makes it difficult now. If his luck is with someone else, that's his choice then. But he has to be ready for the challenge. Yes.
How has being an Ismaili, how does it impact your life?
It's been interesting being abroad and being Ismaili, and being connected to Ismailis in East Asia. I had no idea that there's Jamaat Khana in places like Hong Kong or Tokyo, or Bangkok. And it was really exciting to learn that even though there's very small Jamaats, there are Jamaats, because there is none in Korea. So even though, you might walk into an apartment building, and that's Jamaat Khana. But it was very heartwarming when I had those moments. And in fact, I definitely got emotional in many of those opportunities, because they would come very, far apart. So I recently went to Hong Kong maybe a few weeks back, but I hadn't been to a Jamaat Khana in maybe since the winter break when I went back home to visit. So it had been a very long time. And like I mentioned earlier, I had some family members pass on. And so it was nice to even just do like Ruhani Dua in Jamaat Khana and have just like that warm comfort environment. It's interesting because, again, everyone in that Jamaat was not from Hong Kong originally. Like, they're coming from different places in the world. And so just having, I don't know, just that warmth of the community. You can just be yourself, and you can feel not judged, to the point where I, was releasing my emotions in Jamaat Khana in the middle of my Dua Karavi. And so, it's been very, I think I've just come to appreciate it a lot more, appreciate our community even more than I already did. Because I think our community is just great with the amount of resources we have for our youth, for our older generations, for everyone. We have all these like health boards, we have all these things that other religious communities don't. But having this experience living abroad and still being able to feel like, oh, I can just message so-and-so who I met in Jamaat Khana randomly, who I was connected to in another country, and they'll tell me to come and stay with them for a few days, right? So like no one else, I think, can really do that just so easily. So yeah.
For me, I think it's I would agree, right? Our religion being a smiley, right? We have so many different outlets, so many different venues that provide for the community, and not just our community, just for the general public, right? And for other people that know that we do that, they also are very happy about it, and they more so feel I don't want to use the word jealous, but they're like, wow, your community has so much to offer, right? We wish ours would do the same. So they actually look up to us in that manner. And that's something I've noticed over time as growing older. The one thing I'd say it's helped me out, and or the difference that I've seen is I think our community is very big on volunteering or seva in general. And I think that work ethic, it holds true to so many youth. At least it held true to me growing up, that now that helps out in my worldly life, whether that's work, sports, or anything else that I do outside of, Jamaat, kind of outside of my religious practices. And a lot of people question that, like, why do you have such a good work ethic, or where does that come from, right? Because to be completely honest with you, not everyone is that involved in volunteering, right? And on the Western side of the world, it's all about, okay, what do I get in return for this, right? Am I getting money out of it? Am I getting any kind of profit out of it? For us, we always see it as hey, what's the good in this? Am I helping somebody out? All right, cool, good to go. I'm happy with doing that, That's the way we've always seen it, because that's the values that we've been instilled within ourselves growing up. I was very involved in Seva as a youth. I try to be wherever I can now whenever I get the chance to go to Kane. So I think that work ethic aspect has really influenced my life, of how I can be more helpful. What can I do to help others out? What can I do to make an impact? And I'm going to relate this back again, like you asked initially, who thought they would be famous? I never took it as famous growing up. I always wanted to be like, I want a name for myself, but to say that I made an impact on this world in a positive way. That's what I've always wanted in life. Is I don't want to be famous. I don't want something that grand, but I do want to create a name to people remember that, hey, he made an impact in a positive way.
I am proud of being a Ismaili, and I sort of really sort of hold that high. And especially as I grow up, I'm like everyone else said, we have so much to offer, and there's so much service that I feel like I'm not alone. I look at other people and I see the resources that they don't have, and then I look at what I have, and I'm blessed for that, because I never really asked for it, but it's available, whether it be in Jamaat Khana or outside. There's always things that I can rely on, and I think that's a blessing.
I think whatever has been said is exactly what Ismailis is about. But for me, what marks me the most after volunteerism, of course, is the guidance, the living guidance. For me, it was something that marked me and is important. I think having a living imam who can guide you, and you feel protected at certain point of time, like you don't feel left out. You at any problem that you will have, you can have a guidance, whether through his boards, to different people, to Mukisai, to different entities, but he's there, and this is a blessing. And I think for me, this is what makes me, I think it's the most important.
I had an amazing time being a part of this episode, and I look forward to the next episodes.
It was such a unique experience, interacting with complete strangers, yet being so connected throughout the whole conversation. It's incredible how these stories and experiences bring us all together.
Really great experience to connect and see how big, but also how small our community can be.
It was exciting to meet people from different parts of the world around my favorite drink, a cup of chai.